Hi, everyone. Welcome to Module 4, the final module in this year's PCI DSS Security Awareness series. I'm Margaret, joined as always by Dylan.
Good to be here for this one especially. Every module this year has been about a rule or a habit. This one's different. We're closing the year by looking at two real companies where those exact rules broke down, at real scale, with real consequences.
So this is less about here's what to do and more about here's what happens when you don't.
Exactly. Real breaches, real consequences, and practical defenses we can actually take away from them. Let's get into it. First up, Target, 2013. And the line I want you to hold on to through this whole case study is, a vendor credential became the first domino.
Set the scale for us.
40 million records affected. Malware ended up running in 1,797 stores, and it closed with an $18.5 million multi-state settlement. That came years later, in 2017.
And how did it actually start?
With the root cause. And this is the part that matters most. Attackers stole credentials from Fazio Mechanical, an HVAC contractor with remote access to Target's systems. That vendor's access was never segmented from Target's actual payment environment, which let the attackers move laterally straight into the point-of-sale systems.
An HVAC company had a path into the payment network?
That's exactly the problem, yes. Once they were in, they deployed something called BlackPOS, RAM-scraping malware, across those 1,797 stores, and it harvested full magnetic stripe data right during the peak holiday shopping season. And here's the part that still stands out over a decade later. Target's own FireEye intrusion detection system generated real alerts. The system worked. Nobody acted on them.
Walk me through how this actually played out, day by day.
November 15th, attackers get into Target's network using those stolen HVAC vendor credentials. November 27th, the BlackPOS malware reaches point-of-sale systems in all 1,797 stores. November 30th, the FireEye system fires its alerts. No action taken.
That's the moment that gets me every time.
It should, because from there, it just keeps running. December 12th. The US Department of Justice is the one who actually notifies Target about the breach, not Target's own systems. December 15th, the malware finally gets removed. December 19th, Target publicly discloses it. And then, years later, May 2017, the $18.5 million multi-state settlement gets agreed.
So from first access to public disclosure was
About 5 weeks, but the alert fired after less than 2. The attack succeeded in stages, and there were real opportunities to stop it along the way. Detection without response is not protection. That's the single line worth remembering from this slide. So where did this actually fail? Control by control. 5 PCI requirement areas, all at once. Requirement 1, segmentation. Requirement 5, malware defense. Requirement 8, vendor credentials. Requirement 10, alert monitoring. Requirement 12, third-party risk.
Dylan, are you really saying all 5 failed at the same time? Not just one?
I am, and that's actually the important nuance. This wasn't one dramatic failure. It was several ordinary gaps lining up. 4 lessons come out of it. 1. Segment third-party access from payment systems. There should be no direct connectivity to the cardholder data environment at all. 2. Monitoring only works when alerts are actually reviewed and acted upon. 3. Flat networks multiply the blast radius of any single compromise. And 4. Critical alerts need automated escalation built into incident response, not just a dashboard someone might check.
Let's move to the second case study.
Home Depot, 2014. And the framing here is a familiar entry point, followed by an unpatched weakness. 56 million records affected, 2,200 stores, roughly 5 months of undetected access, and a $25 million settlement with the affected financial institutions.
Familiar entry point. Meaning the same kind of opening as Target?
Exactly the same shape. Entry. Attackers compromised a third-party vendor's credentials to gain initial access. Again, a vendor, again, stolen credentials. Expansion. From there, they exploited a known unpatched Windows vulnerability and deployed custom-built RAM scraping malware that evaded Home Depot's antivirus entirely.
Custom built specifically to get past their defenses?
Specifically built to evade what they had in place? Yes. And it worked for months. This is the timeline, and the headline number is right in the title. 5 months inside. April 2014. Initial access through those compromised vendor credentials. April through September. That's the data theft window. Custom malware running across all 2,200 stores.
5 months is a long time for nobody to notice.
It is, and that's precisely the point of this slide. September 2nd. Law enforcement and banks are the ones who flag suspicious card activity to Home Depot. Not Home Depot's own systems, same pattern as Target. September 8th. Home Depot publicly confirms the breach. September 18th. Malware is finally eradicated from all systems. And March 2020, years later, the $25 million settlement with affected financial institutions.
So the line here is
5 months without detection equals 5 months for an attacker to operate, completely undisturbed. That's not a hypothetical risk. That's exactly what happened. So what broke here? Requirement 5, anti-malware. Requirement 6, patch management. Requirement 8, vendor credentials again. Requirement 10, monitoring. Requirement 11, vulnerability scanning.
the headline for this one?
Antivirus alone was not enough. And that's lesson 1. Behavior matters. Custom malware can evade signature-based antivirus, so behavioral detection and EDR, endpoint detection and response. Tools that watch for suspicious behavior rather than just known malware signatures, add a genuinely necessary second layer. Lesson 2. Patch on time. Patch management SL, as matter most specifically on systems that handle cardholder data. Lesson 3. Hunt continuously. 5 months of dwell time shows exactly why monitoring can't be occasional. And Lesson 4. A bit of good news. EMV chip technology significantly reduces how useful stolen magnetic stripe data actually is to an attacker today.
So some of this really has gotten better since 2014.
Genuinely, yes. That last point is real progress, not just a lesson learned the hard way.
2 different companies, 2 different years. But I'm noticing a pattern here.
You should be, because it's the same opening move both times. Target, stolen HVAC vendor credentials. Home Depot, compromised third-party vendor credentials. Different vendor, different industry, same shared root cause. Trusted vendor access reached too far into the network.
Dylan, are you really saying 2 of the biggest retail breaches in history both started with basically the same mistake?
I am. Trust is not a security control. Access has to be scoped, segmented, monitored, and revocable every single time, regardless of how long that vendor's been trusted or how routine their access has become. And that connection is exactly what sets up where we're headed next in this module.
Before we go further, let's ground this back in what we've actually covered this year. 4 standing rules worth carrying into every workday.
1. Never store sensitive authentication data. CVV, CVC, full magnetic stripe or chip data, PIN or PIN block. None of it gets stored after authorization ever. 2. Verify before you trust. Break the chain and use a contact method you already know independently. 3. Lock and protect. Lock your screen, guard your credentials, use only approved systems. 4. Report immediately. Early reporting protects the company. Preserve the evidence and raise the alarm.
That's the Defender's Field Guide, the Digital Threat Briefing, and the Daily Playbook, all in 4 lines.
That's the whole year, honestly. And everything in the 2 case studies we just walked through is what happens when one of those 4 lines doesn't hold.
let's talk numbers for a second. Where do these attacks actually tend to come from?
I want to be straight with you on this slide specifically. We're not going to put a precise percentage breakdown on screen because the material this training is built from doesn't actually supply sourced numbers for that. And I'd rather show you the real categories than a made-up statistic. So instead, here are the 4 attack categories that come up again and again across everything we've covered this year. Phishing and social engineering, email, QR phishing, vishing, vendor spoofing, internal BEC, terminal tampering, skimmers, altered casing, cables, broken seals and markings, unapproved software and media, unvetted apps, removable media, bypassing security, and credentials and misconfiguration, password reuse, MFA abuse, excessive vendor access.
No single number, but a clear pattern.
Exactly. And the key point is right there in all 4 categories. Human vigilance is the common thread running through every single one of them. Which brings us to why we actually do this every quarter. Technology creates layers, firewalls, malware detection, monitoring tools. But people decide whether those layers actually hold when it matters.
What does that look like in practice?
A locked screen, a rejected MFA prompt, a challenged tailgater, a reported phish. None of those are dramatic actions. They're small, 2-second decisions. But small daily actions reinforce the entire security system. You are genuinely the final layer. Pause, verify, challenge, report. That's the whole discipline in 4 words.
Given what we just walked through with Target and Home Depot, I think it's worth spending a minute specifically on vendors.
Agreed? A TPSP, a third-party service provider, is simply any outside company that has access to your systems or your data. And the risk path is straightforward. Vendor to access, to your network, to the cardholder data environment. Both of today's case studies began exactly there, with compromised third-party credentials.
Dylan, are you really saying we should treat every vendor with suspicion?
Not suspicion, just discipline. The staff rule is simple. Vendor access should be scoped, monitored, and never treated as automatically trustworthy just because it's already set up. It's always had access is not a security justification. It's exactly the assumption that failed twice, at 2 different major retailers.
Let's zoom all the way out for a minute. How does everything we've covered actually fit together?
Picture 5 pieces, all connected around one center. Cardholder data sits at the middle. Around it, the human firewall, technical controls, vendor and TPSP risk, and incident response. No single one of those protects the data by itself.
And that's really the whole story of Target and Home Depot, isn't it? One piece failing and nothing else catching it.
That's exactly it. One weak link can open the chain. The other layers have to be the ones that catch it. Segmentation, patching, monitoring, vendor risk management, and human vigilance. All working together, not in isolation.
Let's review a couple of questions before we close out. First, what was the initial access point in both the Target and Home Depot breaches?
Compromised third-party vendor credentials. Identical root cause, 2 different companies, 1 year apart.
Second, why didn't traditional antivirus stop the Home Depot malware?
Because it was custom-built specifically to evade the signature-based antivirus defenses Home Depot already had in place.
Third, what does network segmentation actually do?
It limits which systems can communicate with each other, which directly reduces how far an attacker can move once they're inside.
Fourth, should vendor access be trusted just because it's already configured?
No, it should be scoped, monitored, and independently governed, regardless of how long it's been in place.
And fifth, what should happen when a critical security alert actually fires?
It has to be reviewed, acted upon, and escalated according to the incident response process, not left sitting in a dashboard, the way Target's FireEye alert was.
And that brings us to the close of this year's training cycle. Module 4 officially completes this year's PCI DSS Security Awareness Program.
One last step from here. Submit your training acknowledgement, so your name, date, and completion record can be retained as compliance evidence. That's what fulfills requirement 12.6.3 for this year.
And then,
Then next year's cycle begins again, right back at Module 1.
Dylan, thank you. This was a genuinely different and honestly a more sobering module than the first three, in a good way.
It's worth being sober about, honestly. The biggest breaches rarely begin with one dramatic failure. They begin with one trusted credential, one missed patch, one ignored alert, and one opportunity to act.
That's a powerful note to close the year on.
Stay alert, verify, protect, report. That's genuinely the whole program in 4 words.
Thank you all for defending our data this year. And we'll see you again when next year's cycle opens with Module 1.